mark. There's his mark right there.
How has mass media influenced our government, politics, and wars?
2/3 of Americans say it's not worth fighting. So you don't care what the American people think?
No, I think you cannot be blown off course.
I will be covering the media, primarily U.S. media, first on wars. As the years become more recent, you will see the technological advances from books, black and white pictures, to raw footage of the wars. Then I will go over briefly on how media has a strong grasp on government decisions. Media can be used to tell truth and lies, for good and bad. It allows people to think for themselves and formulate their own opinions about different topics. Difference of opinions can eventually lead to disputes and wars, which is why I believe is the reason some countries don't allow certain coverages of media. Pamphlets and newspaper articles had an enormous influence on the American Revolution. Colonists were better informed on the activities of Parliament than the English were. Thomas Paine's Common Sense is a perfect example that further led the colonists into revolting against the English. Whenever I think about the beginning of U.S. media, which isn't often, but I do, I think about Paul Revere's midnight ride to warn the colonists of Lexington and Concord that the British were coming. Although he didn't go around shouting that because it was a secret mission, and he wouldn't say the British were coming because they themselves were also British. He would have said that the regulars were coming. Photography was in its infancy during the Civil War, but still managed to capture the gruesome results of the war. Songs during the Civil War also was able to characterize the mood during the time, and newspapers still had a prevalent role in distributing the news. Books written about slavery, such as Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, portrayed the lifestyle of a slave, which strengthened the North's cause. Every country in the war was using propaganda in all available forms during the time. Mostly posters and newspapers got the people in the United States to help in the war effort, such as planting victory gardens, so more of the products in stores could go to the soldiers in the war, who were in desperate need of reparations. As in World War I, propaganda through posters, newspapers, and pictures reigned during this war. Whatever the media showed was what the people believed. Even propaganda in the U.S. with Uncle Sam posters and the importance of defending your country helped to keep military recruitments up and a high trust in the government. What the media didn't show was that Roosevelt was in his wheelchair due to polio, to show that the United States still had a strong leader. On the other side of the world, Hitler's speeches convinced the Germans that his agenda was correct. In my opinion, Hitler was made much more powerful because of the media's influence. For World War I, women stayed at home, grew their gardens, helped the Red Cross, volunteered with their churches and civic groups, with donations, clothing, etc. for war. Many also went to work in the private sector. Overall, women became much more independent during World War I. For World War II, women took all the jobs men used to have and kept the country running. Factory workers, office workers, dock workers, stores, bakeries, hospitals, dairies. They also enlisted in the military. With the relatively new technology called the television being brought into about 93% of American homes during Vietnam, compared to 8% during the Korean War, many more people were able to see the war that the media brought into their living rooms. Vietnam was the first war covered in depth on the news. The film coverage showed the realities of warfare. Wounded civilians, children who had lost their parents, villages destroyed, American GIs with various gruesome wounds from landmines and artillery fire. Vietnam was an open war, no restrictions on the media. It was the most accessible war in our history. The military blamed the media for losing that war, so they were bent on shutting the media out on future wars.
It's the most violent place in Afghanistan, claiming the lives of 106 British soldiers in 4 years. Now America has taken over, and the gloves are off. But when even the local mosque isn't spared, can this strategy turn things around?
Most people in the world probably wouldn't understand, well, wait a minute, you're trying to build a country up by destroying it, but those are people who have not been to Afghanistan.
It's taken us 5 hours to travel this far. And we're about to walk over hidden bombs on the most dangerous road in the world.
The media coverage of Iraq is much more censored than it was in Vietnam. In Iraq, things were done to sanitize the war for the American public. No deaths, coffins coming home, etc. were allowed to be shown. I couldn't find any good footage but documentaries on the Iraq War. The cause of these restrictions is because laws were passed after Vietnam so that the military can now control what news is broadcasted from the war in Iraq.
I for president, I for president, I for president, I for president. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington. We don't want John or Dean or Harry.
Media plays the biggest role in deciding things, such as presidential elections and bills being passed. Some recent popular bills such as SOPA and PIPA, for example. I'm certain if the top sites such as Google, Wikipedia, Facebook, Twitter, etc. didn't advertise against it, those bills would have been passed. Media plays a huge role in our government, a role that the founders of this country didn't dream of. In conclusion, the advancement of technology has been able to distribute the news, biased or not, around the world to more people than ever before. This mass media has such a great effect on our country thinking as a whole. Whether the information we get is a lie or not, it becomes a part of us, directly affecting each of our lives. So before you ever come to conclusions about something, think twice, do some research, or you'll never know if what you know is a lie.
Hi, this is Chuck Storm. I'm live at the scene where last night there was a robbery at about 3:30 in the morning. Now police have...